Good morning, good morning, good morning, and hi. My name is Ann McNeil, and welcome to another episode of Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live. I am live and excited this morning to come to talk about another principle from the book Think and Grow Rich. This has been another phenomenal opportunity to understand how do all of these principles connect to each other. And right now, we're talking about the brain, your brain to be exact. We have been walking through every principle from this book, Think and Grow Rich, from the beginning of the year, starting with the desire and then your faith. All of this is about you. But when you stop and think about the fact that Napoleon Hill shares that our brain has been associated in his brain as a connecting link, if you will, like a broadcasting station that receives and sends thought vibrations. And so I'm very excited today to be here with my co-host Galen Bingham as we talk about with all of you the 12th step to riches. But we're not here by ourselves. We actually have a returning guest, Miss Rose Chevallier, and her mastermind buddy, Miss Lilian. By Lilian, I um, have to pronounce your last name, Lillian, properly, but we'll have you do that when you come on. But I want to just make sure that each of us stop and contact somebody, comment, like, and share this podcast. But stop for a moment and think about how do you use your brain. In preparation for the podcast, I started thinking about the time of day that I personally intentionally stop and actually connect with my own brain to think. I think it was Albert Schweitzer who was asked a question by a reporter, and he said, what's the problem with men today? And Schweitzer said, you know, men just don't think. And as I thought about that point he was making, it was so simple but so profound because we don't think about thinking and using our brains to actually think. But when you take your brain and you think with a group of individuals, again, this is the broadcasting and the receiving communication. When you stop and think about how do you mastermind with your mastermind group of accountability and all of these brains coming together, that's what we're going to be talking with all of you today. But as Galen likes to say to all of us, he could do this show by himself. And thank you, Galen, for doing this show by yourself while I was out on vacation. And now Dr. Peter is out on vacation. But let me bring in my phenomenal co-host partner, buddy, Mr. Galen Bingham. Good morning, Galen. How are you this morning?
Fantastic. Welcome back. Welcome back. Glad to have you back. I know vacation is very well deserved. But yeah, we're talking about the brain. And one of my favorite parts in this chapter is actually in the very beginning when Mr. Hill says, when stimulated or stepped up at to a high rate of vibration, the mind becomes more receptive to the vibration of thought, which reaches it through the ether from outside sources. This stepping up process takes place through either positive emotions or negative emotions. So this is, we don't know a whole lot about the brain, but what we do know is just absolutely amazing. So I am looking forward to hearing from our guests this morning to hear how they use the brain to have a more productive mastermind group. So I can't wait to get into this conversation.
Well, Galen, I'm glad you started us off talking about some of the items that Napoleon Hill talks about in terms of connection of the brain. And we're going to get into this a little bit earlier. And actually, Rose was getting ready to give us her explanation of how she saw it. But Napoleon Hill tells us that really, when you think about a broadcasting and a receiving station, that the creative imagination that we all have is actually that receiving station of our brain. And it helps us to understand why the imagination principle is so critical to this principle of the brain, but also the desire principle and also the auto-suggestion principle, when you think about how do all of this connect together and how are we stimulated to another level of vibration. It even talks about, sex and how it plays into all of this. So I won't go into all of that, but instead we're going to go back to you, Galen, and talk about how these 13 principles connect. We're going to ask everybody to just hold on for just one moment before we bring our special guest on as Galen takes us through the steps of the 13 principles.
Yeah, that is the piece that is incredibly fascinating to me. The fact that we can talk about each of these principles individually, and we do talk about them individually each week. But the real magic is in how it all comes together, how he has built this success philosophy where all these principles really stack on top of one another. So as you watch this video, I'm going to encourage you to think about where the brain fits into this philosophy and how everything weaves together to put you in the best possible position to have success on purpose. So let's go ahead and take a listen to all 13 principles.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the Mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right. Go ahead, Galen.
No, I was just going to say, those are the 13 principles, but I can't wait to get into this conversation about the brain with our guest today. So let's get into it.
All right, let's bring our guests on. Thank you, everybody, for joining this morning. And we'd like to have your comments, your thoughts. Please remember to comment, like, and share. And also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live. But first, we'll have Rose Chevallier, and we'll also have Liliana Castillo on. Good morning, ladies. Good morning. How are you both this morning?
Good morning. We're doing well. Thank you.
Good morning. Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us here.
All right. Let's tell our audience a little bit about both of you. Rose, is it okay if I call you by your first name, Rose?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I've known Rose for a very long time. We were talking before the podcast started about how long, at least 5 years. But Rose provides professional administrative support to businesses. And actually, we'll get into this, but I think her concept came out of some of the masterminding we were doing over the years. But with over 20 years of experience, she has helped businesses focus on what's most important when you talk about a good work-life balance and clearing time to grow their business. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. And it's my pleasure, Galen and I, to meet Liliana. And Liliana is a director of a not-for-profit organization that helps Hispanic communities in Richmond, Virginia. She came to this country from Colombia over 30 years ago, and just a suitcase full of hope. I love that, and dreams. And we're going to talk about some of those dreams and what else is in that suitcase now. And so we want to thank both of you ladies for joining. But we want our audience to know we're talking about how their mastermind group used the principle of the brain as they mastermind with the group. So I'll start off by asking both of you, what was your first introduction to this book and this principle of success espoused by Napoleon Hill? So we'll start with you, Rose, and then we'll go to Liliana.
Sure. I definitely have to give Miss Ann her flowers, because if it wasn't for Miss Ann, I don't think I would definitely not step out and have my own business. And yes, we met about 5-6 years ago. Miss Ann had a meeting in Tampa, Florida. That's where I was residing. And I thought she lived in Florida, in Tampa. The way she just moved through the room and saying hi to everyone, I literally thought she was from Tampa. And she invited me to a NABWIC meeting, and that's how our relationship started. So throughout the years, I've attended her yearly International Mastermind Think and Grow Rich annual meeting. That's in January. And it helped me just being around different people with like mind about business, that when COVID actually happened and everything shut down, that's where Propel Virtual Services, I decided to just step out, and it's been going well. And I hope that answers the question. I go on rabbit trails. So Miss Ann, your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I'm going on a rabbit trail, please.
No, it's good. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that and it's for all of us, as we're introduced to this book and these principles, it tends to connect, if you will, to go back to the brain,
Mm-hmm.
and the vibrations of thought. When you have a desire, because the key here in all these principles, when Galen introduced them, they all starts with a desire.
Mm-hmm.
And the desire for blank, whatever it is, that's your desire. So when we connect with other brains and other individuals,
Right.
and we find that they have a way of helping us to connect that desire, okay, through going back to these principles of creative imagination, subconscious mind, autosuggestion, then this book, I think, is the foundation for that. And so we all come together in different forms called the mastermind, but the principles cannot connect if you don't have a desire. You had a desire first.
Absolutely. I had a
And as
desire for change. Yeah.
exactly, and as
You
we
know what
introduce
changed,
the
but
book to
yeah,
you, right, and as we introduced the book to you, you were able to move forward on that. So let's now,
yeah.
Liliana, if you want to share your first introduction to this book.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you again. My name is Liliana Castillo. I actually met Pat, Rose's sister, when we were doing our master in decision analytics at VCU, and we became very good friends. And then I met Rosie through Pod. And last year they went to your conference and they came back so energetic. Pat talked about the book and everything she learned in the conference about Galen's podcast, Whiskey and Jazz. So I started just reading and researching, and I'm like, wow, I wish I knew this before. So we started reading the book and created they invited me to join their mastermind in the mornings. And that's how I started with the book. And then I started reading the book and researching. And I was like, I was going through a transition. I was tired of the corporate world and always wanted to switch to nonprofit. But you know how people, you hear sometimes voices from people telling different options, different opinions. And I reading the book, I convinced myself what I wanted to do, and then continue just researching and reading about the book and about your conference and what you do, and continue doing the mastermind group with Rosie and Pat in the mornings, Monday mornings, which has helped us a lot to accomplish our goals and continue growing and developing.
Awesome. Gay, I think, Rose, if you want to introduce your mastermind group to the audience and tell us a little bit about how it started, what do you focus on, how many members you have, and then we can have some dialogue back and forth, because I think it's very important for our audience to understand that each of us must have a dream to have a dream come true. And one of the ways to achieve that dream is by forming a mastermind group of accountability. And in forming that group, start with one person. Now, Rose, we talked earlier about what works and what does not work in terms of structure. And one of the things I'm learning in 40 plus years of masterminding is that you cannot put other people together. You start with one person, whoever you are, that's deciding to start a mastermind group. And you start with one, that makes two. The two of you must be in total agreement on the third. This mastermind group that Rose and her sister Pat has formed is an excellent example of that, because they were in total agreement on the third person. And that third person now is masterminding with them. And in order for them to add to the group, the three of them must be in total agreement on the fourth if they decide to add another. If they do, the four of them must be in total agreement on the fifth, and so on. And so when you think about how does that connect to the brain, well, the brain, if you will, and Rose is going to give us her interpretation of this principle, but the brain is stimulated by the vibration of thoughts, your thoughts, the thoughts of others, and especially external environmental thoughts and vibrations. But when you connect all of that with your desire inside of your mastermind group, with auto suggestion, repetition of your affirmation, your subconscious mind, and how do you mix it and use it with the creative imagination, that is your broadcasting and your receiving set, if you will. So, Rose, if you would share with us how you started the group and where you are now, and then we'll have some dialogue with our audience also. And as you're listening to this, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, or even LinkedIn. If you have a question, put it in the chat, and we will do our very best to come to your question. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Miss Ann. Yeah, like Liliana shared, when Patricia and I came back from the annual meeting, we had our goals set, and my sister and I were like, we're gung ho, we're gung ho about really checking off some things that we had listed on our goals for the year. So our mastermind is called the Elevated Mastermind. We meet on Mondays at 6:30 a.m. And the reason why it's very important, like Miss Ann said, because I've been in other mastermind groups. So when I was thinking of starting a new one, I was very mindful on who I can connect with, right? And especially with this chapter, the brain, the word that stuck out to me is, when you think station, is where all things convene, right? And so if we're talking about the brain and receiving and broadcasting and talking about the mastermind, I wanted to be have a group of ladies that it is a safe place. That was important to me, where it was no competition. There was no, it's not there to sell, but it's really there to learn and glean and grow from one another in a safe environment. So how I came about with Patricia, she brought Liliana, and that's when we met. I mean, I initially met Liliana by starting this Elevated Mastermind group, and we just totally mesh. And like Miss Ann shared also, I'm hesitant, and that's being honest, to add a fourth person, because it does definitely change the dynamic. And we've been masterminding for like a year now, almost a year. So it is important when you set up your mastermind group, is to understand it is a place where you need to learn and grow in a safe place. Very important on the group, on the people that you choose. And it definitely needs to be in agreement, because when there's lack of harmony, there's not going to be growth. And the point to a mastermind group is for you to grow, learn, evolve, mature, and actually see results. So I hope that answers your questions, Miss Ann. But I think that's very important on how you choose your group, is because without the proper team, it's not going to move. So you're just meeting and not growing.
Absolutely. And if you can give us your explanation, you were getting ready to give it before the podcast started. We said, wait. We had to wait until we start, because it was an excellent analogy of how you view the brain and how it connects with your group. So if you can share that with the audience.
Sure. When I was reading the chapter 12, the brain, because I have to have a picture in my mind, it needs to make sense to me. And so when I was reading that chapter, how I saw the brain, it's like the framework. And then your subconscious mind, the auto suggestion, are the puzzles in it. And you have to put it in the right place. So, like, the chapter says that the brain is a broadcasting and receiving station. That was the word that stuck out to me. And if it's a station, everything meets there. So I saw the brain as the framework, and everything in it needs to be in the proper place for it to function properly.
I love that.
And have the proper design. Like you have, I should say, a puzzle has an end result to it, and it needs to match the picture. So your brain is the framework, and everything else has to be in its proper place. That's how it kind of made sense to me when I was reading it.
And that's all that matters, because as long as you can put the picture in connotation that works for you. Mm-hmm. And actually this concept of broadcasting and receiving station was an idea and a concept that Napoleon Hill and a couple of other individuals came up with this idea when they thought about, how does this whole thing connect with each other? How does the desire connect with the autosuggestion that connects with the creative imagination? And all of that as you said, for you, it sits in a box. But let's bring Ileana back and have her share her first introduction to your group, and how did you feel about that? But also, what did you see worked for you and the value you were able to add in terms of what it could do for your business and or your life?
So, as we mentioned before, Pat brought me to the group, and then we realized I started writing my goals and sending the goals every week before we met. I divided my goals between in three parts: personal, business, and professional. And I started seeing how Rosie was creating her business and growing on it, and reading more Think and Grow Rich and Your Story and different stories about side hustles. And I was also looking for a job. So I decided, let me look for a job. Let me start a side hustle. So I started taking classes for a real estate license, and also work on my health, on exercising, and in spiritual life. So it was a combination of everything that you have to put together, and you realize is part of, um, like I heard, success is not is the person you become while you're in the process of it. And the book and inspired me to do this, and also the mastermind it. And also because of the chapter I read, that is very important that the brain, that you keep yourself motivated and in right mood all the time, so your brain works at full speed, and this will allow you to think clearly and will help you receive inspiration effortless. And I noticed that while we were doing this, or in the process of the mastermind, every week I have to read and come up with other goals, and he'll help me myself accountable, and try to hold Pat and Rosie accountable. So that's how I became with the group, and that's how I found the value in the mastermind group. Did that answer
Wow.
your question?
Yeah, thank you. I also want to make sure we acknowledge we have a lot of guests on this morning. So Doretha Dennis, Diane King Flowers, Bancorp, Renette Gordon, so many of you that continue to join us every single Saturday. It has just been a phenomenal experience when we stop and think about the power of your brain. So if you have any questions or comments for our guests, please put them in the chat, and we'll definitely do our best to come to them. So let's talk about structure. Rose, we talked with you and Liliana before the podcast started about structure. Any ideas or thoughts now that you've had this 5-year experience with what works well, what does not work well? What I like to call this is the good, the bad, and the ugly of masterminding, and how, when you think about the brain and the impact, and you mentioned it briefly as you were giving your comments, Rose, about when it does not work
Mhm.
and the impact that that has. Because again, now the brain is about vibration of thought.
Mhm.
So if you're blocked and you have somebody in your mastermind group and they're not vibrating at the rate and the speed, and also, it's not in a positive, what are your thoughts about that in terms of the structure, and how do you handle that?
Okay, I see it like you are as strong as your weakest link, right? And so it's not about masterminding, it's not about, one person knows more than the other. Masterminding is really about people, group of people sharing from one another. And after a while, you're going to see how you're contributing, but growing and gleaning from one another. So the desire needs to be there to learn, grow, evolve, mature, and see results. Like for me, I'm a more results oriented person. So if I'm going to do something, I need to see the results of it. If not, I'm going to change. I'm going to, make some changes. So, in saying that, when I structured this mastermind group, I've learned through the other mastermind groups that I've been in is that I can't be rigid enough that if it starts one way, it may change to something else because it has to work. The key is that it's working. If it's not working, then I change, I shift, I kind of make an assessment. Okay, this doesn't work. This is kind of a little too much or overburdening, or how should I say? I'm constantly making assessment where the team is and what I need to do to keep it moving properly. And just because you have a mastermind group does not having a title or a name or a group of people convening. That's not a mastermind group. A mastermind group is a group of people that's evolving and growing. So you have to know what your purpose is and being open to shift and change if things are not working. And also, that's why I said I'm hesitant in adding another person. I'm not close to it, but I'm, going to be cautious about it, because I was in a larger mastermind group, and the larger it is, the more personalities they have, right? So just keep that in mind. Um, it's important that your mastermind group is actually having results, because if not, then why are you guys meeting? So the structure is going back to your question, Miss Ann, it's to me very open, because as we grow, we may just change the format. As we grow, we may focus on something. So it's really open as to um, what's the best, how should I say, structure for where we are in the here and now.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I was just saying I like that, Rose. And I'm just reached back here and I wrote this.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this book that we were using called How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group,
Mm-hmm.
right? And one of the things that we talked about structure. The whole idea of it is starting with the end in mind. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, and I'm going to bring this back to the brain, because again, the principle starts with desire. Oftentimes, though, we start a mastermind group and we don't have a format whatsoever. And this is how we end up with individuals in the group that are not like-minded and like-spirited. And I can say, going back to the stories that you shared, this is what happens as we learn more about the operations of the brain and the subconscious mind and the desire, autosuggestion, creative imagination. How do all of these connect, if you will? How do they connect to the mastermind group and the vibrations that are created? That's really what you're talking about, Rose.
Mm-hmm.
The vibration of having individuals in the group that are not both. Two things, you got to have two. You got to do both. You have like minds and like spirits.
Mm-hmm.
But the group should have a purpose. You see, and again, going back to the smaller, the better, which is why I said start with two. So what you did, and I really admire you for doing this, you didn't throw out the concept. You said, I know the concept worked. It's the people. It's the vibration of thought. We're not connecting on the same wavelengths. And I think that as we all continue to read this book and study these principles, but equally as important, how do you think? And what time do you think? This is a question that I was sharing, in the very beginning of the podcast. And I like to ask everybody who's thinking, put in the chat, what time do you think? So let's talk about that, Rose and Liliana. What time do each of you think, or time do you think you think? Because there's a difference. What time of day do you actually think? Scheduled time, or is there a scheduled time? Is that important to give your brain some time to reflect, some time to review, some time to meditate, some time to forecast, or some time to just be quiet and be open? Is there a particular time you use to think and get those vibrations going?
Liliana, you want to answer that, or do you
Yeah, I
want me
can start. So I've been trying to get into my routine to meditate. If you meditate in the morning, it helps you plan your day. And also, I try to go to the gym at night and get on the sauna. And meditate in the sauna also, or just stay there for a few minutes at the end of my day. So that was very good to get in, have some time to just wind down and either plan my day and then just finish my day by saying, okay, this is what I did and this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. So of course, during the day, you're also thinking all day long because of work and life, but meditating early in the morning or finding some time to meditate is really helpful. And I'm getting into the habit of it. One habit also that I'm getting into it that it's cost me more, it's been more challenging, journal, writing in the journal, starting a journal, writing your thoughts, writing what you're planning, writing what happened. That is also very helpful. Did I answer your question, Mrs.
Yes, 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 you did. And I'm actually looking for a time. So if it's in the morning, can you give me a time within an hour? Say, is it 7 o'clock in the morning? Is it 8 o'clock? Is it 7:30? And the reason I'm asking this question is because I think that there's a benefit and a value of having a set time, just like we talk about desire. The author tells us the 6 keys, as I call them keys, but the 6 steps to riches. You need to know how much money you want. And he says you
Okay.
need to be exact in terms of the amount of money. That's a number. I'm suggesting when we talk about the brain and how the brain works, it's amazing when you set a specific time to think. And what tends to happen over time, your brain gets in the habit of just flooding you with thoughts during that time. It's like exercise. You get in the habit of exercising a certain time of day, whether it's in the morning, whether it's in the evening, or whatever time it is. Eventually, your body is going to say, by habit, cosmic habit force, it's time. It's time to eat. It's time to drink. It's time to think. So let's go back to both of you and give me a specific time. And if you don't have one, it's okay. It may be a range, but I really want to encourage all of our listeners to consider thinking about a specific time you want to think. And what do you do during that thinking time? It's up to you. You could think about your desire. You can think about, your affirmation, like you talked about meditating or journaling or reflecting. It is so, so very powerful. So let's start
Yeah,
with you, Rose, a time, and then we'll go to you, Anna.
I am the guilty one. I don't have a set time, um, which I should. Um, I think for me, it's like I get out of bed, and this is the guilt of working from home, is I get out of the bed and get my coffee and come straight here, and start working and set my day and things like that. However, for me, the best time for me, I do my wusa time is that there's a park near my home. And so maybe a couple of times a week, I go and I walk. And for me, as I exercise, that is the best time for me to think, because it's just me walking. I need to do some kind of activity. It's very hard for me to sit on a sofa and just sit and think. It is very challenging. Like for me to just sit and meditate, like how Liliana, maybe 5-10 minutes, and all of a sudden I find myself, like the brain, I need to retrain my thinking. But I do find myself, if I sit there for 5-10 minutes, I will have to be cleaning or having music or something in the background. So that is very challenging for me. My thinking time is, I would say, when I work out or I'm taking a run or walking in the park. I do think what, my goals, or I think of, and it was interesting, just real small, just the vibe, we're talking about just the vibration of what I'm how should I say, broadcasting out. I was literally thinking, and I shared it with the team, I need to start networking more. I need to start, I got, it's a blessing that the business is doing well, but I said I need to go out and start networking and just meeting new people. And in those thought processes, I called your office, Miss Ann, to share, what I need to do. I need to change something. And that's when I spoke to you. And that's when you invited me to be part of the meeting. So this is just a manifestation of what I was thinking. So if I get myself to do it in more, how should I say,
Structured way.
structured way, but this is truly a manifestation of what I was thinking of. And it just happened. You called, you sent the calendar, I added it, and boom. And I was just thinking about it.
Now I have in my hand just a plain, nothing special. Nothing special. Just a notepad. I want to challenge all of us. Something. A pad. Write it down. Give your brain an opportunity to communicate back to you your desires, right? In terms of, if you call it a journal, let's put that aside. If you would call it reflecting time, let's put that aside. If you call it a review time, let's put that aside. Let's call it opportunities. But I would like to challenge every single one of us. Pick a time of day. Doesn't matter, whatever time works for you. See, we go to work and we work on our jobs, or we work on our businesses, and that's what you're talking about, Rose. But where do we go to work on ourselves in silence? Not just sitting woo woo wah wah. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying having an opportunity to communicate back with yourself with infinite intelligence, giving this brain broadcasting and receiving station an opportunity to work. See, when you have your mastermind group of accountability, you have goals you've set, and then your group is holding you accountable. That group, the three of you, is actually four, because we know that a fourth mind is in the midst, is spiritual. Okay. But before you get there, imagine if you set a time of day, whatever works for you, and you give it 5 minutes. One of my favorite books is entitled The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. She has a process she uses called morning pages. I adopted that for many years, and I created a process myself called a date with myself. And a certain time in the morning, yes, a specific time, yes, around this hour. And I just jot down, what am I thankful for? 2 or 3 things. What am I grateful for? 2 or 3 things. What are my lessons learned from yesterday? Just 2 or 3 things. What opportunities that I would like to have access? 5 or 10 things. But the point is giving my brain an opportunity to communicate back with me, and writing it down. Is great to exercise and walk and talk, all of those things. But where are we documenting this interaction with this broadcasting and receiving station of communication with our creative imagination? Just imagine day after day, year after year, month after, and then what? I was listening to a podcast this week, and the author, who's written 72 books, he's the number one in a lot of categories. He was being interviewed. And they talked about how did you do this? He said, listen, I do 3 to 5 things every single day, the same things. I write, I read, I meditate, I file. John Maxwell. And you can't look at all the books I've written. I'm old, he says. And so I want to challenge each of us, Rose, and everybody who's listening, Lillian, all of us. Think about just doing a little bit every day with the operating of your own brain. So then when you come together with your mastermind group, you have all of these brains coming together, creating another brain, but connecting these vibrations of thought in the achievement to help us achieve that which we desire. I hope that was somewhat helpful, ladies, because again, I want to come back to Lillian now with a time of day. Do you have a time of day?
I try to do it, I'm going to say in a range of 6 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Perfect.
Again, I start my routine. I have a spiritual priest that I listen to every morning. He's very inspiring. and he applies things to real life. So I enjoy listening to him, and then I do meditation, and then my day starts.
Perfect. 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 Galen, I'm not sure if you're still there.
Yeah, I mean, you're back in the groove. I can tell you missed us as well. So,
I don't know why I thought you fell off. I am so sorry. Please
well,
forgive me.
actually, you touched on something that I've been wondering throughout this entire conversation. And it's just this idea that when two or more brains come together, a third one or an additional one is created in the midst. And I'm curious of the ladies, what's been, can you think of an example of where you each have come to your mastermind meeting with ideas, with suggestions, with thoughts, but then something psychic, something cosmic, something spiritual happened that created something seemingly out of nowhere, but it was because you guys were coming together and a third or a fourth brain was created because of the coming together. Can you think of an example of something like that?
The third, let's see. I don't know if I have to say something cosmic. I would say for our group where we are right now, I think has become a place, a safe place where we can catapult from, meaning that, like, I just started my business. Well, it's going to be 2 years, I can't believe it, in March. And I think yeah, for our group where we are, not saying that that will not occur, but honestly where we are right now, where it's a place where, like I said, where we could catapult to our next goal, or to our next building that confidence. That's another good way of saying it, to do the next step. Like our third person, Pat, is not, with us today, but it opened her to now being a volunteer in Better Investing. So I know she's going to do great there. Liliana, she in the I think when we began our group, she was looking for a job or her side hustle, and it ended up that we worked together on her cover page, for her job, and she got it. So that's catapulted her to being the director of this nonprofit. In addition to now, looking for her, for another business she wants to start. And for me, I am at that place that, Propel is doing well, and I am open to new opportunities, So I think that's where we are in our group. It's more of a place of us sharing and giving our ideas and helping each other catapult to that place. If that's answer your question, so um, it has not been, maybe Galen, because you have had a mastermind group for years. You could share what you meant. I think I should say getting something new that came out of the group. But I think for us, it's more of a place that we're launching to new opportunities.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Liliana, can you think of any times when you've come with your ideas and maybe Rose has had her ideas, but because you guys came together, something else came out of that conversation? Often I like to say that sometimes 2 + 2 = 5. Have you ever had an experience like that you could share?
I will agree with Rose, what she just said. Pat, her sister, my friend and our third member, she was confused of what to do, and she started the Better Investing by being volunteer, and now she's really involved because she really was looking into, oh wow, this is great, and I'm finding things through this group. Rose with her business also, her LinkedIn posting, And for me, it was a great help when I was looking for a job, and all the ideas and podcasts and quotes from different people. So we really help each other to create new ideas and to continue developing our our own. And right now, I'm working on my side hustle, still thinking of different things.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, Miss Ann, I'd love to bring you back, because one of the places that really kind of turned up the engine for me was the first time that I went to the annual meeting and was just surrounded by people who were all like-minded, who were all trying to go to a certain place in their own journey. And they were speaking into my plans, into my life in a way that I hadn't anticipated. Especially coming from people who didn't know me, who seemingly didn't know me, but because they were like-minded, they were able to help me bring clarity to my plans. Do you want to talk a little bit about the annual meeting and maybe the Clarity Mastermind as well?
No. I don't want to talk about it because I think Rose would do a much better job. So, Ileana, that's just your blinds, Ileana. Just close your blinds because the sun is coming through.
Yes, I see that.
Perfect.
Stop the
Yes,
comment from
I
me.
think Rose can do a better job because she's mentioned it 3 or 4 times during this this podcast, and Tia's going to bring up the JPEG, but we're going to let everybody know that we have an annual meeting for your life. It's not a conference because there's no big speaker, no workshop sessions, and no breakout sessions, anything like that. We're asking you to bring your life in writing, whether you're mastermind or not. We have a huge mastermind group called the International Mastermind Association, where we hold each other accountable on an annual basis for your written goals. Now, Rose is going to share with us her thoughts about her first, second, either or third experience with that.
Thank you. But yes, I brought it up because that really helped me to start my business. Started with Miss Ann, coming to every year, going to not every year. I missed, I think, one or two, but this is a time where it's like, for me, a reset, and you write out all your goals for the year, and you come together like Galen shared, and we come together and you're set up with a group of people for the day, and you help write out your goals. What's good about that is that it gives you a focus. It gives you, okay, what am I going to focus for the year? And what am I going to accomplish for the year? How I'm going to do that for the year. And it's broken up. For me, I like quarterly goals. The way that the whole meeting is set up is that you have your quarterly goals, you have your yearly goals, you got your 5-year goals. And some people come with this elaborate, I mean, it's like wow factor type of annual report. However, the real purpose of this annual meeting is for you to help you set up your goals for the year. So if you're one that need that type of assistance, this is a great way to start your year off. Actually, Liliana is going to be Liliana's first year, and we may have a 4th person. My friend Sonali is considering attending. So, we may have a crew coming, and we're excited to attend. But I really enjoy attending it just for the simple fact of getting assistance on setting up what am my goals for the year.
I love that. Galen, do you think that will do it?
Yeah, that will absolutely do it. That will absolutely do it. I'm always intrigued by the power of bringing people together, because they will notice things, they will speak things, they will make suggestions that I'm smart enough to come up with on my own, but in that moment, it has to come from someone else, and that's the power of being aligned with like-minded people who are all trying to help you get to where you're trying to go.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge many of our guests that are chiming in the chat. Thank you, Lillian. Thank you. Just want to just chime in and just share some comments from some of our guests that have been chiming in all during the show. And the Retha said, "Our thought manifests itself as electrical energy within the human brain." And she's giving you kudos, Rose and Liliana, that if you can share an example of a time when you observed how thought manifested, transferred itself within the group. And I think that's what Galen just spoke to and the examples that was given. And Rose would think of just commented on Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. Very, very powerful book for any of you that's looking to identify a way on how to really journal, if you will. Awesome book. Monica Long, welcome back. We've missed you. Renette Gordon says, the third mind is present when we come together. That third mind is ultimate wisdom, and that she will be attending her first International Mastermind Association, January 2023. We're going to go ahead and thank all of you for all of your comments, and we're going to go around starting with Galen and aha moments from our guests. And then we'll go to Liliana and then to Rose as we wrap up your aha moment and how people can reach you.
Yeah, for me, it really was just a great reinforcement. This conversation was a great reinforcement of how important it is to be mindful about how you grow your mastermind. Obviously, anytime you lead a group, you always want to add more members and get larger and that kind of thing. But I just love the way that these ladies are being mindful about how you grow and when you bring people in. And back to your point, Miss Ann, about everyone being on the same page and on the same accord before you bring someone in. My name is Galen Bingham. I'm the leadership strategist. You can find me in a variety of ways: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. But the most fun way is by checking out my podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We're on every platform where podcasts are streamed. We're streamed in 20 different countries, and just talking to leaders from every walk of life, every industry, about the whiskeys they drink, the music they listen to, and what they believe it really takes to be an effective leader. As I like to say, I double dog dare you to try us at least once. I guarantee you will get something out of the conversation.
All right, thank you. So let's go to Rose and I'm sorry, Liliana. Any aha moments from you for this podcast today? And thank you both also for joining. It has been inspiring. But I want to make sure that we have a way to contact you if anybody would like to connect with you in your business. So, Liliana, if you go first, and then Rose, any ahas?
So my aha moment was what you mentioned about doing the same thing every day, writing the opportunities, writing, having a special time to do things. And I was like, wow, this can really help. They can get in touch with me through my cell phone, 804-502-0311. Can give you that information. And also I'm in the process of doing my background is in finance and accounting, and I'm doing LCD consulting, which is a bookkeeping business, which I'm starting.
Okay, you need to give us that phone number one more time so we can make sure everybody can connect with you. That was fast.
Sure. 804-502-0311.
Okay, Tia, you got that, right? Okay, put it in the chat, by the way. Put it in our chat here so we can make sure Tia shares it with everybody. All right, Rose.
Yes, my aha moment was as well, at least restarting. And yes, restarting the meditation. It's not anything. I've known this since I've known Miss Ann about meditation. I pick it up, drop it off. Pick it up, drop it off. But it's really a great time. It's just challenging for me because I guess my mind is like I'm thinking about a whole bunch of things, and to kind of settle, it's a little challenging, but not undoable. I can do it. So that was my aha moment, to take at least in starting 10 minutes just to allow myself to think. Just
Yes.
allow myself to think. and to journal, even though it's a half a page, just to write out, and I wrote down some of what you shared. What am I thankful for? What I learned yesterday. I like that. So it gives me a focus on how I could set my journaling or what I need to think of. So that's my aha moment.
And
Um,
the opportunities too.
and say that again, Liliana.
Opportunities. You also mentioned 5 to 10 opportunities, which
Oh,
is
thank you. 5 to 10 opportunities. I like that. So it helps me kind of know what to journal and things like that. I own Propel for Virtual Services, and if you would like to reach me to do some back office administrative work, you can reach me on my website, which is www.propelvirtualservices and that .com, and I'll spell that out, is Propel. Oh, thank you. Virtualservices.com. And thank you so very much, Miss Ann and Galen, for the opportunity to talk to you guys today. And I definitely look forward to see you guys in January.
Awesome, awesome. In January, my professional goal is to have at least 20 families. So, Rose, you've been bringing your family for years now, and I would like Liliana to consider bringing your family. And all of you that's listening, this coming, yes, you can register and come by yourself, but let me tell you, and Rose can attest to this, bringing your family is so powerful to mastermind with you in a larger setting. And as you see the children and the grandchildren and the grandparents and just families coming to a place where they can set goals. But I do want to, you talked about, I was sharing in this other book I have, this one is called My Daily Date with Myself. You can see that, the light. It's called My Daily Date with Myself. And this is a book that I created from Julia Cameron's book, because she calls hers Morning Pages, and I created this as a daily date with myself. And in this book, it's a journal. It's a journal, and exactly what I said. It starts off with just blank pages, a couple of blank pages for you to just to write. But then I go on and I ask myself, what are my opportunities today? And then I have blank lines. Then I say, what lessons did I learn? I have blank lines. Then I have lines that says, what am I thankful for? Blank lines. And then I say, what are the desires of my heart? And then I have blank lines. And this is how, over the years of journaling using Julia Cameron's process, my brain started determining what was most important to me. And after I realized over the years, it started categorizing itself. I go back to myself. My brain started categorizing itself every morning about, okay, brain dump, to get it out, get it out, get it out. And then what am I thankful for? What am I grateful for? What is it that I desire? Write it down, Ann McNeil, and I'm a witness to tell you it is becoming true. And speaking of that, you can reach me by going to annmcneil.com, and I'm picking up Galen's line. Thank you so very much, very much. But the best way to connect with me is to connect with me during my retreat. And so we're going to end this podcast with that. We're going to see all of you next week. We have a very, very, very special guest next week. I'm not going to tell you who he is. You just have to show up, and you will be pleasantly blessed. And I'll leave it at that.
One last question, Mrs. Ann. What time do you do your journal?
I start at about 3:30 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Well, wait, now let me just say this to everybody who says, when I had a job, I had to be to work at 8 o'clock. I got up at 7:30 to be to work at 8 o'clock. We won't talk about how long ago that was. And then I realized there was not very much I could do. Of course, I was always late, and I got in trouble because I'm always trying to catch up during the day. But as I began to mastermind during the 70s, 80s, 90s, I realized in order to do more and be more, I had to restructure the fact that God gave all of us 3 sets of 8s. He gave us 8 hours to work, gave us 8 hours to sleep, and then he gave you a third set of 8 to do whatever it is you desire. Now, I'm like John Maxwell. I'm old, right? And so I didn't start getting up at that time of day, but I realized with 5 businesses, and a family and a lot of different things. When I do my family duties in the evening, I'm not like everybody else. I used to stay up to 11, 12 o'clock at night. No, I go to bed and I get the time in, but it allows me to wake up. So I went from 7:30 waking up to 7 o'clock. I got a little bit more done. Then I went to 6:30. I got a little bit more done. Then I went to 6 o'clock and I got a lot more done. And then I went to, of course, five. This is it. No, it won't be going back any further than that. But again, my point is, and I have a mastermind group, and Rose, you may be familiar, called Early Risers, where all we do is just click up every morning, just the word up. We don't say anything. And it's an accountability on ourselves to get up and do whatever we're going to do. Like I said before we started the podcast, I came on the prep call this morning at 7 and I'm dripping with sweat because I had to exercise before we came on. And I walk my neighborhood, but I start on my street, 5 o'clock. I got to get it in at 5 o'clock. Yes. So if I'm going to exercise, I'm going to pray, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to read, I'm going to journal, I'm going to do these things. This is a date with myself. This is about what works for me, because coming home in the evening trying to, no, I'm not going to do that. As you know, Rose, and some of you that listen, I have a 90-minute ride one way to work, and not gonna do all those things when I come home. So that's why I ask everybody, think about what time. You don't have to do my time. But
that's Jesus time. That's like before the roof.
hold it now. Wait. And it's interesting to say that. It's interesting to say that. And I know for those of you that have to go, we'll see you later. But yes, it is Jesus time, because what time do you connect with him?
Yeah.
Literally, when I read that word, the Sermon on the Mount and all these things, he was an early riser.
Yes.
Come on, somebody. And so for me, it's just personal to me. And Galen was saying when I came back, this is my first time back from vacation. And even on the yacht cruise, Galen, every day I got up at the same time. Yes.
Wow.
I had to go back and take a nap. The body said it's time to get up. Yeah. So people say to you, how do you do it? Anybody want to know how I do it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hold on. I don't use a clock.
Please. I was going to say, what vitamins do you use, Miss Sandra? Energy or water?
You want to test? Yeah. Drink a glass before you go to bed. Your body is going to say, okay, you can cross your legs, you can turn over, you can, but gotta go. And so my internal clock now says, when I go, I don't go back to sleep. But that's just about my daily date with myself. I don't go back to sleep. So if I don't go back to sleep, what am I doing? My desire, I'm a Napoleon Hill expert, certified with the foundation, and I do a book a month. What time am I going to do that? A book a month from the foundation.
Wow. So wow. Thank you. Very inspiring.
No. Thank you, Liliana. Is exactly what I was going to say. It's very inspiring.
Wow. Didn't plan to go all of there, because I do want to do my video at the end. And so we did. And maybe Galen, this is exactly.
It's the vibration, Miss Sand. We're just trying to glean from you as much as possible.
This is the brain at work. This is the
yes.
So now let me give you my aha from the podcast today. The fact that you connected the brain is called Mastermind. Mm-hmm. That was my aha moment listening to you, Rose. And the fact that the mind, the brain, the subconscious mind, all connected inside of your mastermind group. The vibrations, and thank you, Galen, that are created is what propels you. Inch, but it's not a big jump. It's inch to inch to inch to inch. And I'll go back to being old. I've been doing this since 1979, every single week. What would you say about me if I did not have something to show for it? Yeah. Slacker is what you'd call me. Go ahead, Galen.
I was just going to say, and this is why, if you're listening to this is why you need to join us each Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, because this is what we have in our hearts, and we just want to give this to you so you can live your best life. So our producer is on us because we're well past our time commitment. So I'm gonna step in and just really, really encourage you to join us each and every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And I think we got a video of
Yes.
more video of Miss Ann. So let's go to that. And we'll
Thank
see
you,
you.
Caitlin. Thank you for reeling us back in. All right, ladies. Everybody have a good one.
Thank
See
you very
next
much
week.
for having
so
us.
very much.
Thank you.
Really.
My why really is the fact that you really can think and grow rich with a spirit of excellence, in the spirit of service to God. I came from absolutely nothing. So there's no excuse about why I cannot help literally millions of people, but I have to start with one, and that one is myself.
Miss Ann, such a gift. The way that you have curated this space for people to be safe, to be seen, to be heard, to be validated, to be encouraged, to be lifted up in a way that allows them to see beyond what they may have ever even dreamt to be possible, is special. It's a blessing, it's a gift, and it's transformative.
I want to say thank you for opening my eyes to what it is I need to do, how to do what I need to do, and sharing your life experiences so that I don't make the mistakes.
You need to surround yourself with individuals that see something in you that you can't see. Because once they see that, then they will keep bugging you because they know better is in there. And that's what she has done for me. She saw my better when I couldn't even see it.